Hello, everybody. I am Verde Robusto. This is the Schumann Resonance Harmonics channel on YouTube, and it's the Schumann Resonance Harmonics group in Facebook. And so, thank you all for being here. Oh, there's a stupid white dot in the middle of that. All right. Such as it is. The erasing tool kind of went crazy on me. All right, whatever. All the rest of it's otherwise fine. So marks a moment in time. It's definitely different from the other one. All right, it happens. All right, so we're live on Onward and Upward. Okay, so it is Monday, the 8th of November, the year 2020. Excuse me. I am generally at the narrative that I'm at. If you're new here, if you haven't seen any video before this, first off, welcome. The narrative that I'm on, or the chapter, I guess, the section that I'm on. This is kind of loosely bound together, but the section that I am on is I'm talking about the spectrograms in general, the Schumann resonance spectrogram specifically, to wit, the one at Tomsk, which is appearing on your screen here with the cursor all movie like that. All right. So this is the one from Tomsk, which is in Russia, in case you did not know. And this is the standard one that the majority of people are getting their information from. And part of the reason is because it's easily accessible. Part of the reason is because it runs daily or fairly regularly. They update it, it's current. It's what I would call, up to date. All right, so and again, I want to attempt to remember the people that are new here, that are fresh. That a lot of the people watching this may not be veterans, and so I know there's a few, but I believe that the greater part of people here are kind of newer to this. So even though this particular topic is a little bit on the complicated side, it falls under the category of my main drive here is to give proper information to people to kind of take the veil away of being able to decrypt for yourself what you're looking at. And so I in the comments section, frequently I've come across comments about people asking about the Schumann resonances being measured in other parts of the world. And that's fine and good, yet when you do get the results back from that, as I've shown you multiple times in previous videos, what are you getting back from that? What are you looking at? What are you seeing? They're not all the same. They're not all done with the same equipment as one another. And there's a variety of spectroscopes that pick up a variety of data, and it all depends on what you put in it as to what it's going to show you, what it's going to the results that you're going to get from it. This is this is a spectrogram. This is another spectrogram that is from this article here, which is behind the this cover graphic here that I made for the presentation. This article, excuse me, pardon me. This is the title, the Schumann's Symphonies by Pierluigi Poggi. Excuse me, pardon me. And so I've in previous videos I've introduced why this is important. I've given graphics from this. So this particular video, I am going to start reading. Hopefully, I read the whole thing, and not break off into yet another introduction. But it's really important, as we go on, because this article is one of the more advanced stuff. Even though it's written in everyday language and it's easy enough to kind of wrap your head around what's happening, it's by someone who's making it. This team is creating. It's making Schumann resonance detector / antenna setup, so that of its nature and with the complications that are in there, it's advanced stuff. But as I've said before, I think there's a good core of you out there who are, y'all ready for this shit. And you said, don't hold back. Give us the real stuff, the real dealio. We want to, we need the good stuff, and so this right here is some of the good stuff. And I've seen people, giving me a shout out in the comments of wages. Aside from what he himself have said, that that if you want to know about the energies and the stuff, the Schumann and electromagnetics and how it's affect us, come on over and see Verde's channel. And that's absolutely right, and that's where I'm going with this. That not only what the antennas are, what they do, but how these frequencies are affecting you. And hopefully, I can motivate a few people to make their own antennas. That would be a really cool thing. All right. So at any rate, so this one here that on the right hand side is not recent. I believe it's 2012 or 2013 that they got this data from. All right. So now this one here is up to the minute from Tomsk, but as I continually tell people, like it's fine enough that if you are basing your the causality of your symptoms on what's happening in Tomsk, that's fine. It falls under a belief. I'm not going to change that. I'm not going to factually dissuade you otherwise. It is what it is. However, if you want to know the real kind of scientific or the more scientific technical I want to say landscape, I guess. I'm not sure what the better word is, but if you want to get the true technical information, then follow along with what I'm giving you, and then do your research, because it's a place for you to start looking up this information. And once again, a lot of this here is just review. Okay, I haven't gotten into the material yet here, but once again. I encourage people to look up in their neck of the woods for the antenna makers and operators who are currently operating. And chances are, if there's an operator in a place that that I've given, like here it's Italy, for example, I have subs from around the world. Maybe by providing this bit of information, you have a place to look. Okay, that's kind of what this is as well. Is as I give these locations that talk about the Schumann and present the results. Stanford, I think it is, University is one of them. They have a project. They're one of the ones in my browser that I get a. They have a VLF project. There's a lot of stuff going on with measuring the ELF, which is extremely low, or the VLF, which is very low frequency waves. And so some of this is all very exciting. So here in this case, you see, as is the, I guess, the Italian fashion, if you will, they, as in other, meaning as in the Central Italian electromagnetic network, CIEN, in central Italy. They have the 9, I think, stations. They measure up to like 120 hertz. They're also looking for earthquakes. Okay, so these guys are looking for more so the Schumann resonances, and they're not really looking for earthquake type waves. However, that said, right here you see that in this kind of clip I did, you see it's up to 61. This is hertz right here, the frequency, and that's 50 hertz right there. That's the what they're I've pointed out before, this dedicated line, that is the commercial power grid at 50 hertz in Italy, and in other places it's 60. In Japan it is 60. You'd find it right there at 60. All right, and so these right here are, of course, the Schumann resonances. This is at approximately 7. You see it's a low 7 for there. And that's approximately 13, although I give it as 14. That's another one there that's approximately 20. That one there is approximately 26 or 25. That one there, see how wide it kind of stretches out. That's approximately 33, and it's approximately 39, roughly. Okay, so that's sort of more or less how to read this. And what you're finding here on this chart here, this is the decibel. F is, this is a phrase, it's a vector. I can't remember what all the, that's dB. And I think the F does stand for frequency, but it is attached to the intensity, the field strength. And so right here in this range, this tiny range here, okay, you see just this small variation of color going from blue into aqua, and then green and yellow, and then slightly orange, and then into red. So it's very important to know when you're looking at a spectrogram what the color metering of it, or I call it the flavor, the flavor sensor of it is. This here, by in fact, it even shows you, it's a screenshot of Spectrum Lab with the Schumann resonances. So as I'll show you inside the article, they're using like an Apple, laptop for doing this. Okay. So from my teaching model here, I'm once again kind of going through some background information on this. Hopefully it's not boring to people already who know this. And maybe it's a little bit of a different perspective than you had already. Review for me is good. So if it's good for me, then it's also good for you. I assure you of that. We all want to be on the same page. I don't know what you were doing yesterday. Anyway, so that's the date on this today. That's the date marker. I always try to keep these relevant and up to date, as the most up to date one I can get when I do these. So it's also a marker on the thumbnail of kind of, a daily kind of progression of the Schumann as well. All right, so this is the amplitude chart on that. You see the spikes here, not much going on here. Remember, these spikes, the amplitude, are the uprights. And it's not including these really thin reed-like structures, artifacts, these every 15 or 20 minute scanning lines. I don't know, we none of us really know what the best word to call these are. Grid marks, I've been calling them. Picket fences, I don't even know what the hell to call them. But they're not represented. Those amplitudes are not represented on here in any way. And so that's how we know it's not in the environment, is because you are not seeing these spikes coming here on that periodicity of, say, this one here. Okay. And as you'll notice, the spike here, while we're on the topic of this one here, is mostly a green or an aqua color. It's not white. You see that? It is not white. This is not a fifth dimension density white spike coming in from Andromeda or the Pleiades, just for the record. Okay. So this is of the colors, the red and the green. Okay, and so that's why it's giving you not white and not yellow, as it's because there's a little tiny peak in that, um, but not enough to make it yellow in itself. But you see, that's why there is a little peak there. It's not that a rusty kind of color. All right, so I think this is a good overview of the teaching material. This is a review. Again, I know this. I'm hoping that it's being received that way. Uh, that there's a lot to this, and as I go through this, I'm hoping that people will also be following along with this, and um, I you know if I don't think I'm moving too fast on this stuff, but hopefully whatever. Give me comments, suggestions, likes, dislikes. All right. So I'm going to reset the screen here. Okay, I'm back. All right. So this is the teaching material for the session. There we go. Okay, there we go. All right, I think that's good. All right. So, finally here, session D. 16 minutes into the video. All right. So, this is where we're at here. How we get here is that this is an antenna maker, creator, operator in Italy, from Italy. This is translated from Italy, Italian, sorry. And so I don't know where, I can't remember if he gives an example, nails it down to where he is geographically, geologically. But let me get on with this and read this. First off, thank you everyone for being here. I appreciate the support and the comments, and I wanted to provide some happy. I don't know. I don't know if this is exactly happy news or positive news, but something to kind of keep the flow of positivity moving. Like I'm not following along in the election. I know a lot of people are, and I probably should be. Ultimately, God's kind of in charge. The universe, the benevolence of creation. I don't know what's in store for the country, but I do know that we can't kind of lose our heads. I'm not losing my head. I'm staying the course, staying focused. We're learning about Schumann resonances, and I'm happy to be here. And so I'm learning here too, and I just want to kind of motivate people to keep a positive kind of view on things and don't lose hope. Regardless of whatever happens, just don't lose hope. Don't lose your head, please. Okay, so with that public service message, I guess, let me start reading. All right, so this is the Schumann Symphonies, Pierluigi Poggi, IW, or Indigo Whiskey 4 Bravo Lima Gamma, I think that's G. All right, adapted and enacted from the article published on Radio Vista March 2013 with courtesy of its director Gabriel Vila, I2VGW. All right, and I think I said before, but I think these are the call letters for their broadcasting license, like a like a ham operator's kind of license, I think. I'm not sure, but I'm believing that's what that is. Um, it seems the thing. It says this project has a unique genesis, being born during a discussion with some friends, fans like me of communications at optical frequencies. How often it happens, extremes concept meet together, so the discussion on the higher frequencies of the spectrum slipped on the observation of those little different from zero. All right, so is what he's saying is the lower end of closer to zero, little different from zero. All right, so low frequencies. In particular, the band of frequencies from 5 to 35 hertz is characterized by the presence and evolution of various natural phenomena, including the Schumann resonances. And they're showing you the first chart here. Okay? The Schumann resonances, they are a group of energy peaks in the portion of the spectrum of extremely low frequencies, ELF, effect of the global electromagnetic resonances excited by lightning discharges. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? Zoom out. Look at that, bam. All right. I think that's a little better. Resonance charges. All right. So they're showing you the different modes. These are actually when we're measuring the modes. These are what we are actually measuring. Okay. I've done videos on the modes. In the questions, you can ask, "Oh, what are the modes?" and I'll be glad to answer you. But it has a lot to do with the measurement of the various frequencies. These are actually modes. And right, there we go. Example, cavity resonance modes. So you have the first, the second, and the third fundamental harmonics, which show up here. And they're showing you more than top 5, by the way. So they have this one at 7.8, one at 14, one at 20, one at 26, one at 33, one at 39, one at 45, roughly. They fluctuate, but they tend to be centered, focused around these frequencies. Excuse me. This phenomena is named by physicist Winifred Otto Schumann, who first predicted it mathematically in 1952. The cavity, whose boundaries are the Earth's surface and the ionosphere, it is naturally excited by energy from lightning discharges, and its resonance is revealed as separate peaks in the field of ELF around 8, 14, 20, 26, and 32 hertz. Given the nature inherently variable of the electrical properties and geometry of the cavity, the spectrum lines are actually frequency bands centered around the frequencies calculated as shown in the example herewith shown. Okay. I'm actually going to see if we can... No, all right. No. Bam. All right, I think that's about it. All right, so there's the maximum we can get, 170%. All right. As shown by the example herewith shown. Okay. These signals, hold on. Oh, much better. There we go. These signals are collected and analyzed for various studies, such as example, climate studies, distribution of lightning, abnormalities of the ionosphere, extraterrestrial lightning, geomagnetic disturbances, transient luminant events, TLEs, these are your sprites and elves, seismic precursors. So the Schumann resonance waves happen before earthquakes. Schumann resonances don't cause earthquakes. All right. The receipt of these natural signals is usually carried out by stations specifically equipped in which a large antenna, or said better, an E field sensor, is the heart of the receiving system. But not everybody is lucky enough to be able to have room enough to its installation. The aim of this work is therefore to propose some solutions and practical suggestions to those willing to study the matter but having limited means. Oh, that's us. The solution presented is suitable for field day use in order to allow the enthusiast to take advantage of a day out of school for experiment with success. The system. Wanting to simplify at most the schematic of the necessary elements to the study, we can assume the following situation. So it shows you figure 3 block diagram of the acquisition chain. All right. So, that was not intended. All right. So right here, I'm going to take a pause. I myself, I'm going to have a drink of soda. I'm sorry, of coffee. Thank you. I'm going to clear my throat. Okay. So this is the heart of the Schumann detector system. You see there's a few different types of antennas. Okay. They're not showing you the ball type antenna, which is very common. We've talked about that. This is a T, right? These are different type, dipole. These are dipole antennas. Okay. They serve different wavelengths, but these are the electric portion of the antennas. Okay. Then it goes from there to this spaghetti, this breadboard, as I call this, okay, with a different choke. That's a choke, looks like it's a wire, the copper wire around an iron core. I believe that's a choke, I'm not sure. There's an LED meter, a little battery to operate the little amplifier that's in there. Okay, so, and there's also a filter in there somewhere, should be. Okay, the choke is a filter. Okay, so that is, without knowing better or more something more about it, I would estimate that is, at least it's schematically, we can look at that as a choke. Okay, which a choke is a notch filter that filters out a certain desired frequency. And so in the cases, as I've shown, earlier on, the 50 hertz commercial power line, I'm not sure what to call it, but it's the horizontal power line of 50 hertz. That was, earlier in the thumbnail. Okay, just as a refresher. Okay, so these are various spectrograms, different color. Okay, they're showing different type of information, different waves. Okay, and without knowing more about it, it's just giving you a printout. Their printout. They're doing a screenshot of what's on their Spectrum Lab software. Okay, so this is generally speaking. This plotter is attached to its own computer, its own spectrogram. It is its own thing. It's its own software. It's its own dedicated hardware, and the computer hardware and software have to work together, or you got problems. So you have the antenna. That's one part wired up to the amplifier and the choke, which gets also then sent to the computer with the signals. There it is, signals conditioning. Okay. So you see the basic, this is a block diagram of the acquisition chain. Okay. So when I talk about the acquisition chain And the front end, when I'm talking about the front end, I would generally be speaking about the amplifier, but more specifically about the signal's conditioning. So the front end includes amplifying the signal from both the electric and or the amplitude and the quality. The quality is magnetics. The quality is usually a signal that comes from a magnetic induction coil, which is a whole other thing. I've talked about that in other videos. Um, so both of those signals have to get amplified, they get filtered out, and then acquisition analysis, and then the signal gets conditioned. And then it gets read by the spectrogram. So you see, there's a number of moving, what I'm saying moving parts, even though this isn't theoretically moving. There's data always flying through that once you get it up and working and everything's working, there's data always moving through that because there's always something happening with the Schumann. It's always powering, on its end, it's always got either power amplitude or wave frequency moving around. All right, around the world. Okay, all right. So block diagram. All right. So, all right. So, where are we? The system. All right, the system is composed of an element designed to capture the natural electric field. Okay, so in that electric field, to show you the dipole. Okay, followed by a module that processes the signal to make it easy to be analyzed. Then the last item in charge of the analysis. All right, so it's a typo. All right, so let us now, block by block, develop some considerations of design and use. Okay, now the antenna. Oops, sorry about that. The antenna. Oh, sorry. The newcomers, less accustomed to these extremes frequencies, could legitimately ask whether it is possible, as in the VLF and higher, use a kind of active antenna made with a small stylus and an appropriate amplifier stage of high input impedance. If, from a theoretical point of view, the thought is logical and motivated, unfortunately, some practical aspects make it very difficult, if not impractical, this choice. Let's see with some interesting observations on this regard. Okay, point A. An antenna, quote, small, let us say a wire of 2 to 3 meters of length, has an equivalent capacity quite low, about 30 to 40 picofarads, and F is a farad unless I'm otherwise mistaken, which is capacitance. Whether we would linearize its frequency response down to 5 hertz, it must be closed, quote unquote, load with the input resistance, the front end, to about 1 gigaohm, 1 G ohm. So G is a giga, so that's a billion. Okay, resistance of about 1 gigaohm. Okay. All right. Point 2, the gain of the small stylus with respect to the electric field to pick up is also very low, and this leads to the need to use high amplifications. All right, so what that's telling you, so I can do this. So what that's telling you, when it talks about high amplifications, when you're looking at the Schumann signal, you have to look at what's amplifying it. Okay, a person needs to look at the there we go. You need to look at how much amplification it takes to get the signal into the conditioning. So you can run the spectrogram on it. So there needs to be a minimum. And as you saw, if you've been following along with this, okay, I showed you the two scales. One is negative 75 decibels, and one is negative 120 is the scale it starts at. So we're talking about a very relatively low field strength of the Schumann resonances. They are pico Teslas and pico electron volts. So these are very subtle energies. All right, you got to remember that. That's why we're talking about negative decibels and -5, -10 decibels. We're talking negative 120 decibels. They're very slight signals, and that's why you need these specialized equipment. And so with respect to the gain, we're talking about the necessary gain, like you have, excuse me, when we're talking about, all right, when we're talking about a stylus, unless I'm mistaken here, unless I'm otherwise mistaken, when we're talking about a stylus, what he's talking about is like a turntable needle, and let me see if I can find a working model. Okay, I'm back. Got to put my headset back on. I'm back. Okay. All right. So I found a. This is not a good picture of it. Okay. When he's talking about a stylus, he's talking about something like this to pick up the signal. This is. I got this from. It's an article on magnetic cartridge. All right. So this is when we talk about a stylus right here. All right. So this is basically what we're talking about is a. I don't want to get too far afield on this because they didn't. He's saying that this method has drawbacks and they didn't necessarily use it. But when we talk about a stylus in there, it's important because we're talking about electromotive force, and you have a. Generally speaking, the way it works is you have a. There, all right. So you have a magnetic coil, okay, here, and then you have a plunger that goes up and down. Okay, so this plunger is attached to an arm that. Oh, here we go. It's attached to an arm. Okay. So you have the magnetic, you have the wires, very thin wires, that is attached to the the tone arm, which goes to the electrics, your amplifier. All right. So the magnet, which is stationary, goes to the amplifier. Okay. So this guy with the arm, okay, these are your copper wires, okay. And so that's your arm here that's attached to, goes into the record groove. This right here goes point with the point, goes into the record groove. It's that far away. It's on a cantilever. So at the end of it, boop, is a little diamond that sticks down. Okay, so this is again, my hand, this is the copper winding, right? And this is the explanation of how a stylus works relative to that. So as you're getting a signal from the atmosphere, this bobber goes down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Instead of it responding to the groove that's in the Schumann, instead of it responding to the groove that's in the LP record, it is responding instead to the up and down of the Schumann resonances or the electrics in the environment. So that is what the stylus is. It's like a plunger that moves up and down and creates an electric field based on induction, magnetic induction. Okay, so this is the simplest way I can explain it. And if I had a better picture, I would show it to you. But when we talk about stylus, it's all of this, right? This is kind of later on. It's not required reading, but I wanted to explain to you what the stylus is and why and how that is relevant. It's a type of measurement, type of antenna measurement for variety of what you can do to measure the Schumann resonances. Okay, so back to our regularly scheduled article. Okay. Hold please. Okay. So because of the type of measurement system that is, it would require high amplification. So because if you're familiar with, let me just say this, if you are familiar with LP records, and there's a lot of people who are watching this, I think, that are not familiar with turntables and records and needles and styluses and all of that you need, in addition to the turntable, the record player. The difference between a record player and a turntable is a turntable needs an amplifier and a preamp, and then speakers. Okay, a record player has usually a built-in, small built-in crackly ass speaker that goes with it. It's got a tiny amplifier, a tiny speaker, so it can play the whole thing, so you have a sense of what the record may sound like. A record player oftentimes has a headphone jack that's put in there, and it's better to listen to a record player through your headphones and not through the crackly ass crappy speaker that comes with it. A turntable is just the electronics that turn a record, an LP, 33 or 45 speed record at usually they don't include a preamp, but sometimes they do. It's usually just the bass mechanism to turn the LP record around at a consistent speed, and there's ways that it keeps the tracking of the tone arm and all of these different adjustments. They adjust the speed and all these things on the turntable, and then after that you need a preamp before it goes into the amplifier itself, or there is a receiver or an integrated amplifier that also has a phono stage for the phonograph. So it has a built-in, not only do you need a preamp stage to increase the signal, but with the plunger, the stylus type, okay, you also, relative to LP records, okay, there's also a signal expansion that happens at the ends of the spectrum, both ends of the spectrum. There's a compression that needs to happen, properly speaking, to get the most out of it, because the how do I say it? The record groove can only hold so much information, and it's important to know for that. And what are our constraints in a wave, in any given wave? And this is a good thing. Old time LP records with the grooves in them cut into them only have a narrow, from a broader range, they have a narrow band. It's a spectrum that it can work with. So that's why in the equalization, the signal conditioning of the phono records, there is a decompression that happens on the two ends, and it may happen more on the bass end than on the upper end. Excuse me. All right. So all right. So that, I just wanted to go over this whole thing of what the stylus is. And this is also a good and kind of good example of why, when I read this, it's like, oh, this is going to be a long article, because there's some things in here that I really need to excuse me, that it really did need to go over in more than just, oh, here's the stylus, go look up LP records. Like, well, okay, I'm going to have fun explaining it because I suspect a lot of my subs and my viewers have never actually played a record or may not have ever seen an LP record, either a 33 or a 45, let alone a 78 RPM, like 78 RPM. Like wow, that's fast. And they all sound like a chipmunk. All right, so okay. So back to the reading. Okay. All right, so I explained thoroughly there, I hope, what the stylus is and how it requires more amplification and all of that. All right, so let me do a time check. All right, so I'm at 45 minutes. I think what I'm going to do is read up to this part here, the front end, and then I'm going to kind of end it. So by that point, that should be almost close. That'll be closer to an hour than I had wanted originally. All right, so onward and upward. Hello. All right. The two factors just discussed. All right, so the intent and the small. Blah, blah, blah. The two factors just discussed, leading to having to design and build a front end very critical, almost impossible to stabilize outside of a laboratory, and where a few raindrops or a bit of mist may completely distort the measurements. All right, that's really important here. All right. So first thing is the limitations of these antennas themselves, in addition to these factors themselves, they're difficult, leading to having to design and build a front end very critical, almost impossible to stabilize outside of a laboratory, and where only a few raindrops or a little bit of mist may completely distort the measurements. All right. This is, once again, I've said this before, I've said it again, and I think, just repeatedly say this, that it is extremely difficult to get an unimpeded or a good clear signal locally, because there are so many factors that can affect a good, clean, clear signal of the Schumann resonances. And here he's talking about a few raindrops or some mist or other stuff, doesn't take much, will distort the measurements. Okay. It should worth to be considered. Okay, I just had to sneeze, sorry. It should worth to be considered how playing with an antenna very short, every little disturbance of the static field on its vicinity becomes a signal, or better, a disturbance in measurement. Flying insects, the grass moving in the wind, the movement of some human in the vicinity of the antenna, as well as the atmospheric agents such as rain, fog, snow, are all elements that can create havoc in various ways on the output signal of the system. The Marconi antenna, because of its more generous dimensions, it solves many of these problems. Also, for the same reasons, it presents a high capacity to the ground, which allows the design and implementation of a front end much less critical and expensive. The solution proposed is a compromise between wishes and real possibilities, with a goal to allow a certain freedom of study and experimentation. To convince definitely the novice about the difficulties, you can consider how 10 Hertz are associated to the wavelength of 30,000 kilometers. A Marconi, 20 meters long, therefore, is equivalent to use for the reception of the medium wave, a whip only 0.2 millimeters long. For experiments made with the system described below, it appears that an inverted L antenna, 9 meters long and 2.5 meters high from the ground, can be considered an entry level. Also, a T antenna, 18 meters long and 3 meters from the ground, already allows good listen of all resonances. And more bulky structures, of course, allow to appreciate more details of the variability of the signal. All right, so this is a good place to end before I get to an hour. Okay. So, yeah, I'm going to end this very, very shortly. This is, you see how, just to kind of summarize really quickly, you can see how basically what it's telling you here at the end is basically that, that it doesn't take much to give you a distorted signal from the local environment, okay? And so there's a lot of moving parts that are, kind of more or less moving parts that come into play when, when we're acquiring a Schumann resonance signal. There's subtle energies. I've said this before. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it's when you read from these antenna makers talk about the signal they get, they can localize to when there's human interference, a car rode by, someone playing loud music, you get a breeze, like a bee flies by, so that's part of the thing of why you need to understand what you're looking at with the spectrogram, the Schumann antenna, so you don't get caught up in, we'll just say, a hysteria of believing that it's something that isn't there. I guess that's the simplest way to put it. All right, so this is I don't know, maybe halfway through. There's more to this. Right, yeah, roughly halfway through this, it's important to know how they put the Schumann signal together. At least I think so. And so it's toward that end that I'm bringing this stuff, and I want people, my subscribers and listeners, to be able to know how the signals work, signal path works. All right, so I guess that's just the summary of what's there, and I'm I guess a little bit on the tired side. My head feels like mush right now. So thank you all for being here. I appreciate your coming around and your supporting me in this. And just thank you. Make sure to leave comments, feedback, whatever it is, questions, specifics. I work best with specifics. And if you don't know specifics, maybe I can help you kind of narrow things down. We'll ask some questions and figure out what specifically were you wondering. All right. Because I ask my guides, I ask, the universe creator to please help me, and to please help me to answer this person or whatever I'm curious with, to know what the right true answer is. And I will impart that knowledge to you as I'm able. So thank you all for coming today. You're helping to make this more fun with your comments and love and support. And so make sure you tell your friends, share, subscribe, like, comment, whatever. Thank you all for being here. You're all wonderful. Namaste. I love you very much. Thank you.